Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Forget him, kid.
To infinity and beyond!
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me, and my natural response could be to get offended.
Well, fine, let's talk about it. Any thoughts of your own on this matter? Or is that your thing? You come into a bar, you read some obscure passage, and then pretend you pawn it off as your own idea just to impress some girls?
Just another American who saw too many movies as a child.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something Movie Podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making. It is the 30-something Movie Podcast. It's our first episode after episode number 500. So for those of you on the back half of 1,000, welcome. With me here this evening, I've got most of the crew. Patrick is here. How you doing?
Great. Hi, everybody.
Dennis.
Hey, everybody.
How's it going, Dennis?
Good. Happy to be alive.
We're happy you're alive too. We missed you. We really, a little while back when we were doing the Grumpy Old Men episode, we really missed your perspective.
That one.
Yeah. We really wanted your perspective on that. We felt like we could have learned a lot.
I know what you're doing there, but I did really miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I get your joke, but yeah.
That is humor. That is humor. That is
Bo,
humor. I recognize it.
That is humor. I recognize that. Bo, how are you doing?
I am well, gentlemen.
Is that you have a cat sitting on your face?
I do. He is. He has decided to not leave me alone since I got home today.
Okay.
Oh, that's always nice when they show up there.
That's nice. Usually when I get home, all the children except for the furry one just look at me and just go, "Oh, it's you."
Yeah, he's very clingy today. Mom is out drinking, so he's at a loss.
There we go. That's all right. He can be an honorary member of the pod.
Excellent. Yeah. He watched the movie with me, so
okay, all right. Well, given the chance, he probably might eat a human too.
Oh, he said without a doubt,
yeah.
If someone were to be dead and it was the only source of food, he would start with the eyeballs.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that what you said, buddy?
Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, we are starting off the month of December, and this one, the first several episodes, I'll share that by the time it typically gets to December, I'm stretching a bit when it comes to what our themes are going to be for the month. But this one, I was a little happy with this one. We're calling this one.
He felt inspired, folks. Don't let him fool you.
I know.
He was very proud of this one.
I was pretty happy about this one. December is what we're calling Good Eatin' Month, because 3 of our movies are Alive, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and Tombstone. So,
you know what would have been a great way to round this out from last year?
Yeah.
Eating Raoul.
Yes. Yeah, Eating Raoul would have been a good one to have here.
Can we go back a couple of weeks and just talk about the cannolis again?
We could.
Leave the gun, take the cannoli.
Did you? Bo, you probably don't know this, and Dennis, I'm not sure that you were around for this either. I did actually deliver Tony cannolis to Pat and Jeff.
And
so, Pat, were they good?
Oh, they were delicious.
Excellent.
They were delicious.
I didn't get those.
Yeah, you weren't on the podcast.
So I was on a podcast where we talked about it. Maybe not the Eating Raoul one, but
that was the Godfather from like a year ago.
Yeah, so why weren't there any for the Godfather?
I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll have to do another trip.
Probably because all of us were on that podcast for the Godfather, and somebody just limited budget.
That's true. That's also true. I'll bring you a cannoli sometime. How's that?
More Patreon subscribers, more cannoli. That's really all it comes down to.
That's true. If we get more Patreons, there's more cannolis for everybody. All right. Well, this one is Alive. We are talking the 1993 survival movie Alive. This is the spoiler alert you get. We're going to be talking. If we mention a movie and you don't want to hear about it, just skip ahead maybe a couple of times, and we should be done at that point. So this is fair warning there. Make sure you visit our website, 30podcast.com, where you can leave a rating, a voicemail. You could join us over there on Patreon, as we just mentioned. Bunch of bonus content over there, bonus episodes, aplenty for our Patreon co-executive producers. So thank you so much for all of those that have been helping support the show over there. All right, before we get going with the rest of this episode, even though episode 500 was our first episode of the month, we did not do our typical This Month in 93 segment there. So let's hop in the DeLorean real quick, and for this one, we'll start off with This Month, December 1993.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious...
All right. So let's see. Top news I've got here for this month in 93. The North American Free Trade Agreement was ratified in December of 1993. So that was a big deal in December of 93. I'm going to leave one of these till the very end because I have some follow-up questions with it. But so December 15th, we'll jump back in time here in a moment. December 15th, John Williams makes his final appearance as the conductor of the Boston Pops.
Oh, geez.
And the one I had questions about, because this dominated my little young life at the time that it came out, on December 10th, the pioneering first-person shooter video game Doom was released. Did any of you gentlemen play Doom?
I have, but not regularly. I remember when it came out, though.
Doom was like the next evolution up from Wolfenstein 3D. Like that was the Wolfenstein 3D was the gateway drug, and then Doom was the next one. And then Doom was exciting because that was the first video game that I ever had where you could mod the players. And so I remember that I replaced, what did I have? I replaced some of the demons in Doom with Barney the Purple Dinosaur.
Really?
Yes. It was lots and lots of fun.
I remember playing Doom. That was a good time.
Yeah.
I remember, though, there was a Chex cereal game that you could get with 12 proofs of purchase and whatever. And it was called Chex Quest. And basically it was Doom, but it was Doom, but your character was like this superhero in this blue outfit with like a piece of Chex cereal for armor. And then he would run around and try to take out the Soggies, and the Soggies were the demons. But it was almost identical to Doom.
Okay. That one I did not play.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was the one thing that, and it always made me laugh. Oh my gosh, there's a serial first-person shooter. Now, I don't know if it was shot for shot the same as Doom, but I remember that was one of the, for some reason that sticks in my mind. And that was, you could get a video game of Chex cereal shooting up Soggies.
Well, they had, the 80s and 90s were prime time for food-related video games, because, I don't know, did you guys ever play the Domino's Pizza Avoid the Noid game for the Nintendo?
Avoid the Noid.
Yep.
I remember the saying. I don't remember the game.
My God.
Yeah, I think the game was called Avoid the Noid. Yeah, that was, in fact, the sacrilege was, in our house, Friday night was pizza night. It was also because the pizza place was right next to the Blockbuster Video. We would go order our pizza, which, here's where the irony comes in. We'd go order our pizza, which was Little Caesars. Then we'd walk next door to the Domino, or to the Best Buy, Domino. Let's just list all the places that are not giving us corporate sponsorship.
Okay.
To the Blockbuster. We go to the Blockbuster, and I remember every Friday night we'd probably rent, we'd rent a movie, maybe a couple of movies, and then my dad would let us rent a couple of video games. And I do remember kind of the irony of, we're bringing home Little Caesars Pizza, but I'm also renting the Domino's Pizza video game to play on the... So, yes, just corporate sponsorship my entire childhood, I guess.
Yep.
But I didn't let it affect me. It was the choice of a new generation, and it was my choice. So I don't let that kind of thing control my fate. There's no mystical nonsense that controls my fate. It's all a lot of simple tricks and nonsense. So yeah, Doom.
Yeah, no PlayStation games from we stopped at I think Atari. That was it. And then at this point, I'm as you've most notably note, I'm a little bit older than you at this point.
Yeah.
So it was college baseball and getting turned down by women.
Okay, all right. I never played those Nintendo games. I don't know what those are.
So Nintendo, I may have heard. I obviously know the phrase, the Noid phrase, but I don't remember playing any of those games. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, Moses and the Noid didn't know each other either. So
yeah, that's true. There's a couple of notable deaths in December of 93. On December 4th, musician, composer, and band leader Frank Zappa died on December 4th, 1993. Anytime we mention Frank Zappa, I like to take a moment and list the names of his children because I think they're fun.
What's your favorite?
I think my favorite is probably Moon Unit Zappa.
I like Dweezil.
Dweezil
I'm partial to Dweezil. Yeah.
I'm partial to Dweezil too. Yeah, I like Dweezil.
Yeah.
What was did Dweezil have a middle name?
Or was it just one? Dweezil.
Nuts.
Oh, so come on. So Dweezil was not even his real name.
Well, of course not.
Well, hold on. Was Moon Unit Zappa, was that her real name? Yeah, that was her real name.
With the Zappas, reality was
I know.
Construct, my friend.
Yeah, I know. So apparently Dweezil Zappa's real name is Ian Donald Calvin Euclid Zappa.
Didn't Dweezil?
Good.
He was like fairly. Wasn't Dweezil the one that had like I don't know if he had a show or if he was on shows. Like I remember Dweezil being. I'm pretty sure I know that.
Oh yeah, he did stuff for sure.
He did stuff like I don't know.
Yeah, wasn't he on MTV?
MTV, okay.
Yeah.
Was that it?
Sure.
Yeah, I think he was a VJ on MTV.
Yeah, because I remember seeing him and he was pretty funny too.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's the one that sticks in my head because I saw him more than the rest.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, no, anytime we have a moment to read off the names of some of the Zappa children, I enjoy doing that. So, thank you for indulging me. The other death that we had was December 6, 1993. Don Amici, the American actor known for his roles in Cocoon and Trading Places, among many others, passed away on December 6th. Let's see. Top books. We had Slow Waltz in Cedar Bend by Robert James Waller, who I think basically between that and Bridges of Madison County, he kind of just ruled 1993 with an iron fist. Top movies, Mrs. Doubtfire, starring Robin Williams. Mrs. Doubtfire, was the first 2 weeks of December. Wayne's World 2 was the third weekend, and the fourth weekend was Grumpy Old Men and Tombstone were both popular during the fourth weekend in December there.
All of which I believe we have discussed or will soon discuss.
Yes, we have, or soon will with Tombstone. That's just in a couple of weeks. Let's see, and then top songs. We start off the month with I Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That by Meatloaf. Highly appropriate.
Mr. Loaf to you.
Mr. Loaf, highly appropriate that we mention him during this episode, especially. And then the song Again by Janet Jackson, and then for a couple weeks at the end of the year, Hero by Mariah Carey was the top song. All right, that does it for 93. Let's go ahead and head on into this movie. So we typically break up, if you haven't joined us before, we break up our episodes into giving you some of the background information on it. We do a quick major moments walkthrough of the plot, and then after that, we go into our deeper thoughts and either make up stuff or discuss how we feel about this movie. We'll just, given this one in particular, I want to give you guys time to just kind of digest some of your thoughts here.
Oh, geez. Here we go. Here we go.
I mean, I want to make sure that this is a quality episode. I mean, this is one of those movies that has really got some teeth. And,
your jokes bite.
Thank you. That's appropriate.
I was trying to figure out what aperitif goes with flesh, and I just couldn't come up with one.
Yeah. Well, we'll flesh that out as we talk. Yeah. All right. This one came out on January 15th, 1993, with a rating of R. Apparently, it was going to be PG-13 until you got to the plane crash scene, and they decided that was enough for it to be rated R.
So the plane crash scene, the problem.
Right.
The cannibalism, PG-13, just fine.
Cannibalism's fine. Yeah, the plane crash was too intense.
Too much.
But the eating the human jerky later in the movie, totally fine.
Which, by the way, while we're here, Did anyone else look at the plane crash and go, 90s cinema?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Like
A lot of 90s.
I don't want to say I laughed, but
I chuckled a bit.
Yeah, the way when the tail broke off, you were just like, okay.
Yeah, I chuckled a bit because I was kind of in my own head. I was comparing it to the plane crash scene in Fight Club.
Yes.
It was only missing the Wilhelm scream.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Let's see. So yes, this one was rated R. Runtime was 2 hours and 5 minutes. Directed by Frank Marshall, who also did Arachnophobia and Congo. Writer was John Patrick Shanley, who did Moonstruck and Doubt. Producers were Kathleen Kennedy and Robert Watts. Kennedy did Jurassic Park and E.T. Watts did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I believe this was the last movie he produced before retiring. Composer was James Newton Howard, who did I Am Legend and Unbreakable. Cinematography done by Peter James, who did Black Robe and Driving Miss Daisy. Editor was Michael Kahn and William Goldenberg. Kahn did Jurassic Park and Minority Report. Goldenberg did Argo and Zero Dark 30. Production companies were Touchstone and Paramount Pictures. The budget was $32 million. The box office, $82.5. Starring Ethan Hawke as Nando Parado. He was in Before Sunrise and Training Day. Josh Hamilton played Roberto Canessa. He was in The Bourne Identity and Dark Skies. Real quick note on Josh Hamilton. His part was actually read for by Brad Pitt. But apparently his audition was terrible, so that's why they went with Josh Hamilton. So, the more you know. Vincent Spano was Antonio Balbi. He was in Rumblefish and Oscar. Bruce Ramsey was Carlos Paez. He was in Hellraiser Bloodline and Behind the Wall. John Hames Newton was Antonio Vizintin. He was in The Newton Boys and The Christmas Card. David Kriegel played Gustavo Zerbino. He was in Pushing Tin and Minority Report. Kevin Bresnahan was Roy Harley. He was in Winter's Bone and Superbad. Jake Carpenter was Alberto Artuna. He was in Aspen Extreme and The Good Son. And Michael De Lorenzo was Rafael Cano. He was in New York Undercover and A Few Good Men. Jose Zuniga played Fraga. He was in Con Air and Twilight. Ileana Douglas played Liliana Methol. She was in Cape Fear and Goodfellas. And Danny Nucci played Hugo Diaz. He was in The Rock and Titanic. All of those names super easy for me to pronounce. So a couple little quick trivia things here. So the actual plane crash, this is based on a true story. The plane crash happened on Friday the 13th of October in 1972. Just another sign that you should probably not do anything on Friday the 13th in October, no matter what it is. Here was some interesting stuff I found, actually more recent news on this. A Uruguayan television report in 2005 claimed that an American hiker in the Andes actually stumbled across the wallet of one of the survivors from the plane crash. They found the wallet, a roll of film, some cash, some ID papers, and a jacket that had been buried in the snow for over 3 decades, just a few meters from the crash site. So it was kind of fun that they were able to find that so many years later.
Yeah.
Did you see the thing about the road?
About the road? No.
Some people retraced their steps as they were trying to walk out for help.
Okay.
And they found the road, and it is a road. Like that whole scene where they go,
oh, yeah.
But it might be a road. It might not be a road. It was a road.
It was a road. Oh, okay. No, I had not seen that.
Yeah, some hikers retraced the steps, and yeah, it was kind of a cool story. I'm like, all right, so there was a road, and then you start to think, man, if they'd just gone back to the road.
Right. One of the other things about this movie, which typically kind of rare for a full-length motion picture, is that it was shot in sequence. So a lot of times when they film movies, they'll film things out of order, and then obviously they'll edit things together, in the final edit. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting. They decided to shoot this one in chronological order. And I was just curious. I thought, what other movies have we talked about or that we know of that were shot in chronological order? And actually there were quite a few, and quite a few kind of big name movies. E.T. was one of them. E.T. was shot in chronological order. The Breakfast Club was. American Graffiti, The Shining, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Beautiful Mind. So yeah, there's a bunch of them. Shawshank Redemption was another one. So it always seems like it should be kind of a rare thing with how movies typically get made, but yeah, no, apparently there were a bunch that were done that way.
Well, and
Interesting.
if you think about it, most of what you listed, there's a storytelling reason for that. It was probably easier for the actors to get into the right headspace going in order. Actually, if you read a little about this, when the scene where they went to eat the human flesh, a few of the actors actually did a fast for 2 days so they would feel the hunger.
Yeah.
So I think they were definitely, I'm not going to say they went method or anything, but
yeah,
they were trying anyway.
Well, and I think sometimes when you film out of order, it's because it might be for budgetary reasons somewhat, because you might have different locations and you want to film everything at that location at one time, so it's less expensive. Whereas a movie like this, you're on the side of a mountain.
Yeah, one location.
You don't
5 helicopters to get everyone up there every day.
I read that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that this was actually filmed in the Canadian Rockies, and that it did took them at 5 What's that about? Yeah, so yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Here's another kind of fun one. It was director Frank Marshall was actually discussing this film on his car phone and whether or not he was going to make it, and he was cut off in traffic by a truck with a bumper sticker that read, "Rugby players eat their dead." And he felt like...
What are the chances of that? That's just insane.
Yeah.
It's a sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sign.
Yeah. So apparently his response was, well, you got to go with those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir, you do.
And it's interesting that the history of this movie, the script sat around for so long, and there's a not so great version of it floating around from Mexico.
Yeah. Survive
there was,
or something like that.
I want to say the script's been around since the 80s.
I think the script has been around since like 81, and it took them nearly 12 years to get it done. Yeah. All right. Let me give you the synopsis real quick, then we'll go into our major moments, then we will go into some deeper thoughts. In a world where survival is everything, Ethan Hawke, Vincent Spano, and Josh Hamilton star in the harrowing true story of courage and endurance. Alive, the gripping tale of a rugby team's fight against all odds, stranded in the Andes after a plane crash. Against the unforgiving elements, they must do the unimaginable to stay alive. Their incredible journey will touch your soul, but it'll eat your whole foot.
After 20 years, you analyze a lot. You remember people, heroism, the miracle of the Andes, that's what they called it. To be affronted by solitude without decadence or a single material thing to prostitute it elevates you to a spiritual plane where I felt the presence of God. Now there's the God they taught me about at school. And there is the God that's hidden by what surrounds us in this civilization.
Are we supposed to fly that close to the mountains?
That's the God I met on the mountain. We were brought together by a grand experience.
All right. So our major moments for this one, 10 major moments. We kind of take the plot and we narrow it down to the 10 biggest moments in the movie. If you haven't seen this recently or you haven't seen it at all, this will kind of give you a quick overview of it all. We always recommend that you stop, go see the movie first, and then come on back once you've done that. But if not, let's go ahead and proceed. So the plane crash in the Andes happened on October 13th, 1972. Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 carrying a rugby team with their relatives and friends crashes into a mountain in the Andes due to turbulence and pilot error, leading to the immediate death of several passengers and crew members. Antonio, the team captain, organizes efforts to help the injured once they do crash. Medical students Roberto Canessa and Gustavo Zerbino provide aid. The survivors are facing the harsh reality of their situation, with Nando in a coma for part of this and his sister Susanna severely injured. The survivors face their first night in the freezing cold using seat covers as blankets, blocking the fuselage opening with luggage. Rationing begins with minimal resources, including chocolates and wine, which just sounds like a Tuesday night to me. Nando regains consciousness and learns about his mother's death. He proposes a daring plan to hike out of the mountains for help, suggesting the controversial idea of also consuming the deceased in order to survive. That is a slightly different take on the book from Beetlejuice. It is the cookbook of the recently deceased. Along the same lines, but slightly different. The survivors are crushed to hear a radio broadcast announcing that the search for them has been called off. Facing starvation, they do make the grim decision to eat the flesh of their deceased friends and relatives. A group sets out to find the plane's tail for batteries to power the radio so they can get that back up and running again. When they return without success, soon there is an avalanche that strikes, killing 8 more of the survivors, including Antonio and Liliana. Then there is a second expedition led by Nando, Canessa, and Tintin, finds the plane's tail but fails to make the radio operational at that point. The group faces further casualties, underscoring how dire this situation has gotten. Determined to find help, Nando and Canessa embark on a grueling journey through the mountains, eventually sending Tintin back to increase their chances of survival. After a 12-day trek, Nando and Canessa finally find help, leading to the rescue of the remaining survivors by helicopters, with an emotional reunion on the mountains. And the film concludes in the present day with Carlitos reflecting on the ordeal and the survivors returning to the crash site to honor those who perished with a memorial cross. Those are the major moments. Before we go into deeper thoughts, anything you feel like I missed? Anything that needs to be pointed out?
I think you got it all, man.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Some of that was tough to swallow, but I think we'll be okay. All right. We are going to go on to they're just going to keep coming. Just buckle up.
This is what you signed up for, folks.
Buckle up, because they're going to keep coming. All right.
Hope you got an appetite for these kind of jokes.
Ooh, yes. Thank you. Dennis, I'm glad you're here. I feel like, Dennis, you and I are on the same page pun-wise. So
I just think it's good that we're providing humor that the audience can really sink their teeth into.
Oh, bad.
Thank you. Okay. Bo, it's your turn sometime in the next minute or so.
Yep.
Somebody came to feed.
There you go.
Thought he was going to choke.
Yeah. All right. Deeper thoughts.
And now, Deep Thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot. Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
The one thing I thought would be more appropriate than Frank Marshall directing this would have been if Richard Donner would have directed this movie. Then at the end, when they rap and they have the cast party, is it a Donner party?
Oh my goodness.
Is it?
Oh my goodness.
That's going to live in my little headcanon of an alternative version of this movie directed by him.
Well, my deep thoughts just went out the window.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, deep thoughts. So, first of all, do you like this movie, and when was the first time you remember seeing it?
This weekend for me, it had just never been on my list of gotta go see the cannibals, you know? I had read about it. I knew the story. There wasn't really anything dragging me to see the movie.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the storytelling.
Yeah, for me, kind of same thing. It was when this movie came out, I was living in England and I was playing rugby on the school rugby team. So I was like, oh, a movie about rugby players. And they wait, what? So that was kind of like, and that was kind of always the story, is like the guys on the rugby team would be like, did you hear about this movie that came out that's supposed to be a true story? And they eat each other to stay alive. And I'm like, okay, well, I feel like you've told the story of the movie. I'm not sure I really need to go see it now, but cool. So yeah, actually kind of same thing to you, Bo. I felt like at that point, I'm like, well, I kind of know the story. I'm not sure what more I need to know. It's a survival story. They had to eat each other to stay alive, and I'm assuming some of them probably stayed alive.
Hence the title,
because it's called Alive.
Yeah,
so,
you didn't need Ethan Hawke to tell you that.
Right. Which I thought it was kind of interesting the way some of you reacted when I told you that we were going to be talking about this movie. I actually have a recording of Dennis reacting to me saying that we were going to be watching this movie tonight. He was really excited about it.
It's alive! It's alive!
Yeah, you got really excited.
He's an excitable guy.
Yeah, yeah.
An excitable boy, even.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw in, I saw this movie for the podcast. So within 24 hours, I had heard about it. And in a way, I mean, to not talk about it and mention the cannibalism is akin to burying the lead. But I was kind of surprised with how little a part of that movie the cannibalism actually was.
Yeah.
I really, because, and I don't know, is it almost unfortunate that that's the only thing? Oh yeah, that's the cannibal movie. That's what I know of Alive.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was, in a way, I'm kind of like, oh, well, I'm a little underwhelmed. I thought it would be a more prevalent part of the story. And there's a book called The Heart of the Ocean, which I think is the story of a Boston whaling ship that they're not sure whether it got attacked or it got whatever. One of the whales that it was hunting capsized the ship. And there was a bunch of this crew that ended up in a lifeboat, and it resorted to cannibalism. And that was the story. It took place in the 1800s. Chris Hemsworth, or is it Liam Hemsworth? One of the Hemsworths is in the movie adaptation. What was that?
I think it's Chris.
Yeah, it was in the movie adaptation. And then the original was the inspiration for Moby Dick. And anyways, long story short, they cover cannibalism heavily in the book that I read about it. And it talks about what these guys did. And that was a much more prevalent part of the story. I mean, they talked about like the psychological effects. It broke down what happened when they came back and had to face the relatives of the people that they ate. And so I kind of thought, and again, this was all told within the context of this fated voyage of this Boston whaling vessel. And I kind of thought that would be like this with the movie. So when I saw it, and it was kind of like, wow, that was it. I mean, yeah. I mean, again, you do have to mention it, and that is a big thing. But I almost feel like it's like I fixated on that. That's what I associated with this movie. But the whole aspect of it being a survival tale and how it came down, and that, you know, how they were rescued, and none of that really, I didn't even process that. So.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like, I knew of this as, oh, yeah, that's the rugby cannibalism movie. And I thought it was going to be a bigger thing in the movie. What I was really surprised about was how much of a religious aspect it was to the movie. Like, that was kind of surprising. I was like, oh, I figured it was going to be kind of I was expecting kind of, not like crazy gruesome, but I was expecting to be kind of like a body horror kind of aspect to it all, and it really and truly wasn't. Like, it was as subtly and carefully as you could handle the topic. It seems like they did. And it was interesting how they kind of brought it into, like, that was the debate they were having, was it was more of a, well, does God want us to do this? And is this not like a perversion of communion or something like that? And I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, that part I actually did not expect.
Well, before we go too much deeper, we should get Dennis's take on this.
Well, I just had a quick question. Anybody read the book or no?
I have not read the book.
I haven't. Have you?
No, I just was curious how accurate and how things were, and was there ever a disagreement about how things went, or were they all kind of in agreement? And
well, I know the real Nando was a technical consultant on the film, so you hope they got most of it right.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember hearing about the book from any of the stuff that I read was that the criticism of the book was that it went into, people felt like it might have gone into too much detail about the eating of of the deceased.
Okay.
But no, I have not read it myself.
All right. No, it's just interesting. Yeah. I mean, because whenever you have survivor stories or things like that, sometimes it's always like, this would have been, I'm not saying that this is how it should have happened, but I'm saying just think if there would have only been like 1 or 2 survivors,
right,
and all these people died and it was 3, like it could be an interesting, like, is that really what happened? And how did you survive? Like, because you can see some of the potential, they don't really like go into it here, but I mean, I remember thinking, like, initially, was this going to be where people turn on each other? Like, you think of, like, if it's a matter of survival, and if that's the way to survive, and you start to run out of meat and you're used to eating other people, at some point, do you start to go, well, I'm getting weaker. You're going to be eating me soon. So what I'm going to do is off somebody, like, you start to think we can go into a darker place. I think maybe that's tainted by the whole issue of, like, The Walking Dead, because in Walking Dead, it tends to point towards man's sort of worst in their quest for survival versus their best. And do you lose that humanity, and do you survive at all costs and do things that you would regret? So it doesn't, I think there's like other movies that have kind of dove into that a little bit deeper. So if the book goes into the whole eating part, I mean,
hey guys, I'm going to bed with 8 toes, and if I wake up with 7, I'm going to be really upset.
Well, you wonder, the suspicious. I mean, luckily they were a team. What if this was not a team? What if this was a bunch of strangers?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So many different ways this could have turned, where you're going to be much more reluctant to turn on a teammate or your family that's there. In fact, they're very guarded about, remember, eating, I think, his sister. And it's like that whole concept of just, it might be interesting to see what is in the book about how that went down, because it was a bigger decision, because they weren't just eating strangers, they were eating family member and friends and teammates. And I could see how that could be a bigger part of the book.
Well, and kind of the awkwardness of the one guy realizing that he might be dying soon. So he's like, hey, if I die, you guys have permission to eat me.
Yes. Yeah. Which I would have done. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, Dennis. As per usual, after you get done saying something, I have like a bunch of thoughts. But I mean, it's funny because what you're describing, the way I remember that book, In the Heart of the Ocean, they explore a lot of that when it's like 3 or 4 dudes sitting in a lifeboat, and they go through those things, and they aren't necessarily like comrades, right? And so it's just like, okay, the first person that dies, and then, well, does the person let themselves die, or do you know what I'm saying? They start eyeing each other just as the hunger sits in, and they describe it becoming more animal. And that was my first thought. My second thought was, I know, obviously you're into movies, and you have either done some writing, or your goal someday is to write a screenplay. And I know that you like horror, and it's very fascinating for me to hear you talk, and almost kind of like, in my mind, hearing you speak, it's almost like you're coming up with an idea for a story. And it's cool because, I'm always fascinated with based on a true story, based around a true story, inspired by, like, there's different levels of how accurate a movie is to the source material. And what you're describing is, to me, is fascinating hearing you talk, because it's like, okay, you're taking a real incident and then letting it inspire another story. Hey, what happens if they're not just what you were describing? And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, man, that'd be a cool movie. Hey,
well, and I think part of this movie, the way
fascinating.
I think part of it, the way they started this off, I will say that I did not think that way when I first saw this back on VHS when it first came out, or within the first couple of years of it coming out on VHS, we saw it. At that age, I really didn't think that way. I thought more of like my baseball team. I thought about, like, if this were to happen. But I think what started me when I rewatched it this last week was maybe it's John Malkovich. maybe that's what just gets you in that kind of creepier mindset, where I'm just thinking the way he's talking, I'm thinking, is this the loans? I don't remember how many, I didn't look it up again, like how many survived. I'm thinking, what if he was the only survivor? And what really happened? And did you really survive that way? Was that how it all went down? Or were you somebody who was just the quickest to get everybody else so that you had the most food and survive the longest, So it just started like I blame it on John Malkovich.
It definitely sets a tone.
It sets a tone. He's so serious, it's an interesting, like the way they start and end with it, almost like this is the way it went down. And then, but there's so many people who survived that there would have been some argument about if things went differently. That's why I was just curious what dove into, if there were any disagreements. Hey, that's not what happened. Because some people are portrayed as, you know, for lack of a better word, cowards, or not, maybe not cowards, but what would that panic? Like, I don't think coward's a fair word, but you get what I'm saying. Some people were like, hey, we stay focused, we survive. And other people are the ones who just like, kind of like, no, it's all, we're doomed. I think of just that type of thing. People who gave up easily, people who were emotionally broken earlier. So I get weaker. Maybe that would be the better word instead of coward, weaker.
Defeatist.
What?
Defeatist.
Yeah. Defeatist and weaker in their quest for survival, where other people are like, no, we're doing this. This is going to work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So apart from the cannibalism, which, like we've said, is not a huge part of the story, what about the whole idea of it as a survival movie, like a survival and rescue movie? How does it work within that? I know before we started, or as we started recording, we did say a couple different ways. Some of it, the plane crash part was a little, Bo, I think you even said you almost tried not to laugh out loud during the plane crash because it seemed, just the visuals seemed a little, I don't know, somewhat campy or goofy the way it was filmed. But as a survival movie in and of itself, how did that part work for you? And Pat, you were about to say something, so.
Yeah, I was, but I want to be careful I didn't cut across anybody. But
well, if you do, just cut off the good parts.
I was waiting for it. So I was really torn with this movie, kind of like, well, which direction is it going? Because the plane crash definitely grabbed my attention, right? I mean, I'll just say it is over the top. I'm not going to assign judgment. I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum. Dark meat, white meat, whatever y'all like to eat. Human, chicken, whatever. I'm not going to judge.
Some of our listeners are going to have a really hard time stomaching a lot of this.
I am just going to say, though, the plane crash was over the top. And then it was just like, man, that's pretty intense. And then there was the sadness because, people were dying. And then there was, and I'm going to quote The Greatest Generation when I say this, but there was actually a legit solitary double reed woodwind instrument of cannibalism when they actually made the decision to eat their fellows.
Yeah.
But then there was a side of this movie where the soundtrack was very full and lush and orchestral. And it was like, look at these vistas. We're up here. We're men. I love you, man. I mean, it was like, look at this adventure we're on. And we're going to do great things. And it was like, okay, well, now hold on a second. We just had a plane crash. We just lost a couple dozen people. People are dying. But now we're kind of like, now it's the vibe of, hey, we're on this adventure. And that's when I tend to like the happy ending movies. And so I'm like, okay, I'm into this. It was almost like a Robinson Crusoe-esque, how are we going to survive? And they're lashing bits of the plane together and they've got a plan and we're going to fix the radio. And if that doesn't work, we're going to do this. And we're going to, but then then it would kind of swing back and then there'd be some dark stuff. And again, I could imagine that if they're trying to tell the story, like they're real positive. Okay. They're negative. They're probably like in the course of this traumatic event. But I just felt like, especially with the music that I was listening to, I'm like, I'm not sure what kind of a movie I'm supposed to be watching. Like, how should I be feeling about this? Are we on this adventure? Or are we in this incredibly traumatic situation? And even right up until the ending, I kind of felt like, boy, that's not the music that you play when you're finally rescued, when 3/4 of the people all died. That's the music that you play if the story is, hey, we all got through. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it should be more somber. But then when they went to the credit music and they're playing that version of the Ave Maria, suddenly I felt like, okay, that was kind of the tone that I was expecting. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that was the tone that I was expecting throughout, but the music was very triumphant and epic. And so there were parts of it that I very much liked. I liked the whole idea of, hey, how are we going to survive up here? And we're going to send these guys out. And, well, what happens? Well, I'm just going to keep walking. Like, I'm going to die walking. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to sit there and wait for it, which I could totally understand. But then there was all this death and sadness. And again, an incredibly traumatic event, but not much was spared for the emotions surrounding that. So I was, and again, I'm not going to judge the movie. I can, but I'm trying not to.
You just spent the last 3 minutes. No.
I know.
But hey, I will say I'm glad that you said that first, that you talked about the music, because I think watching this was probably one of those movies that, and I agree, the mix was weird. And when you said it was R-rated, I was almost like, it felt like I would find this partially in the family section for Disney films, like at their library. Like the music and the kind of like, what's that one out there with the dogs and all that? There was a certain vibe.
Incredible Journey.
Yeah. So and there's the other one with the snow dogs. I think
snow dogs.
It's called Snow Dogs.
Yeah. So it's just this weird mix that exactly what you said. It's a serious subject, and I think that the music threw me out of this a lot. Where I just kept saying my thought throughout this entire movie when I was watching it this time. Not the first time I saw it. I can't remember back then. I was trying to think back then. It's been like eating me this whole time. Like, how did I respond back then? And but the things I kept thinking was, this would be a movie that would be a great movie to remake. Like, I'd like to see a redone version of this now with a better soundtrack, with even some better actors and acting. And I'm not saying that the actors were all bad, but some of the lines were really cheesy. There was just a lot of stuff that brought me out of, like you said, the dark, somber thing of like, what are you doing in survival? I think there should have been a lot less sound in music, because sometimes less is more in here. And if when you're out in the middle of the, like a snowy environment like that, I think music makes me think of like skiing and adventure. And like you said, Robinson Crusoe. And I felt like this should have been desolate. This should have been a feeling of despair and desolate, that you have been challenged so much here that literally you are going into the darkest depths to have to eat another human to survive. And the music should have reflected that. And I feel like from a score perspective on its own, whatever, the music's beautiful, but like didn't match this music. This is like, if I almost feel like I would have put some of these scenes in and like where I kind of would do it in my class, where I would play different music to see how the mood changes.
Yeah.
I would be this like perfect lesson where I don't think it really works in most cases. Ave Maria, like you said, might be the only better, like there was at least a little bit more serious tone at the end, but you just came back from all this, interesting, like weird sweeping grand skiing down I don't know that I'd be skiing down and like in the things that woohoo and everybody's like excited. I don't. There was just a weird sort of, it was, yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that, because the exact same thought was when I heard some of the music and there were the scenes of them celebrating and sledding down the hill and all that other stuff. I'm like, hold on. Is this a kid's movie? Is this because other than the cannibalism, I'm sitting there thinking with some of these scenes, and exactly the music in certain scenes really kind of took me out of the, what are the stakes here? Because that wasn't even a pun, but that wasn't a bad one.
And it sort of seemed like the decision. I mean, I would think that, again, I don't know if you're getting to that question. I think you have that in the questions, don't you? About like, what would we do? Would we resort to that type of thing? Yeah. But I'm just thinking that regardless of your answer, yes or no, that it seemed like they came to it. Okay, there was the flippant joke, first of like, oh, I had to eat them. They're the pilots. They got us into this type of thing. Yeah. And then there was, hey, like he really said that, hey, maybe we should do. It seemed like there wasn't there would have been a much longer, slower moral dilemma to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you would have almost gotten to where you were literally starving. You're like, you know what? We need to do this. And you're crossing that bridge, and there would be dissenters who would not, in a more vocal way, maybe. Right. And they brought up some religious aspects and things like that. And they talked about the soul, but it seemed too shallow and too quick to be like, all right, yep, let's chow down. Yeah. At least for my take, where I think there could have been more drama built around that. And like you said, the title and hearing that, you almost expect that. And then it sort of seemed like they made the decision relatively quick. And then boom, they were right. Like, I didn't feel like they exhausted all of their means yet.
Right.
And I had a question. I remember saying this, unless I missed a scene somewhere, I don't know, but they had matches for cigarettes. Why was there no attempt to start a fire? because then you would see smoke rising up and then planes that are swirling by, but they were definitely kept smoking. And you had seats, you had stuff that were there. There was materials from the plane that you could have easily started a big bonfire, some sort of fire to start to, like, again, create this big, huge,
I thought the exact same thing.
And I just kept saying 15 minutes, and why aren't you going to a fire right away? Because they're going to be looking for you in the first 24 to 48 hours because you didn't arrive at your location. Yeah. So you're going to have planes out there, get that fire going, and that's your best bet. I don't know. So I just thought that, and I wondered if that was ever explained why they didn't attempt.
Unless they didn't think they had anything they could burn until they found that money later, because then they eventually do start a fire. But I wondered about that.
There's got to be so many things in that plane that were there, debris that would have been there. I would have thought.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
And then do you take? I don't know if they really were taking the clothes off the other people, where you're thinking layers. I don't know. I just, as the movie's going on, I just start thinking. I think I've always been intrigued by survival stories. And I know we all say hypothetical. What are we going to do? And I feel like again, not being cocky in this case, but I'm just saying that my mindset is that there's always a way. There's always a way. And I feel like I would be like, I'm sitting there watching the movie thinking all these things they could have done. Why didn't they build snow around the plane to kind of insulate it? Almost like an igloo to keep yourself warmer at night. Consider how far away you were from the mountains and stuff. Would somebody stay at avalanche possibility? Like I was saying that before the avalanche scene even happened. I don't remember it from back then. And I was just thinking, how close are you to where you're going to get affected by maybe an avalanche, or where are you at? And anyway, but I'd love to see a new version of this. That would be kind of cool. Even though the story, because the story is gripping, there's no doubt about it. I just think it was not as executed as well as it could have been to get the most emotional impact or dilemma, making choices about what they really had to do.
Right. I think you get David Cronenberg to do the updated version.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. Little body horror action there. The irony was, and I had not watched this movie. Yeah, I had I watched it before? No. So earlier this week, prior to also watching this movie, so I'm on a bit of a theme right now. I also watched the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time.
That's the first?
Yeah, I had not seen it before. I thought I had, but I had not.
Because your high school and kind of college years, I would have thought that would have been a definite with your film.
I would have thought so too, but no,
low budget indie sort of film. The way it made is just watching it for that reason alone was like super interesting.
Yeah, no, so I first watched it for the first time just not that long ago, but yeah, so I'm on a bit of a. I feel like I need to go watch some family movies. I think I bit off more than I could chew with some of these movies. Hey, Pat.
You need something you can sink your teeth into?
Yes, exactly. Hey, Pat, do you know what a cannibal's favorite type of shampoo is?
What is that?
It's Head and Shoulders.
Oh, son of a gun.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
How do you help a cannibal out?
I'm thinking too hard. What?
You give him a hand.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. All right.
To get back to the movie, I would just like to say that, Dennis, I'm going to jump off one of your comments too, where you said some of the dialogue. There was some of the dialogue that just kind of seemed like, is this how people really speak? And I think your point that you put much more eloquently than I would, of you'd like to see a remake just to see, hey, can we get a little bit more emotional impact or a little bit more reality? Like I got tripped up a little bit on some of the dialogue. Seemed a little bit overly melodramatic, a little bit overly flowery. And again, I think that really works if you're making like a Disney family adventure movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I love Ethan Hawke, but I'm just like, nowadays, who would you put? I would probably first cast like Kevin Bacon, maybe Barry Pepper. I wish John Candy was alive. Jerry Rice. Maybe Meatloaf, because he used to act too. That would be a good one.
There you go.
Mr. Loaf.
Well, you
Brie
know
Brie Larson could play the sister.
You know they're going to eat Meatloaf.
Or Fiona
first.
Apple, maybe. Fiona Apple would be a good one as a sister.
Oh, I see what you did there. We've got Meatloaf and Fiona Apple and
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon. Yep, I see what you did.
Barry, I love Barry Pepper, man.
I see what you did there.
I'd have a little Barry Pepper with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate this episode.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
On a level. That's all I'll say. I appreciate this episode on a level.
I was worried that it was all going to be gone, but
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
yeah. All right. Do we have anything else before we jump into 3 questions?
Oh man.
Here's the one thing, honestly, if they were going to do a remake of this, I'd really appreciate seeing, I don't know, some actors that maybe are South American playing the roles.
Yeah.
That was problematic.
That would be super
I
cool.
thought about the whitewashing a little bit.
Yeah. So that would be super cool. I mean, that, 1993,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
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 Not much else to say there.
I kind of had to pretend that they were just like a foreign exchange rugby team.
They brought in some ringers.
Yeah.
The United States was traveling across to go.
Right. It's like when the American basketball players go play for like Croatia or somewhere like that, because their mother's second cousin was Croatian.
Right.
Those type of things.
Right. Well, and again, for me, it comes back to, and I like to call out historical inaccuracies with movies as much as the next person. But I think I've really kind of gotten my mind open up to the idea of, hey, this movie is based on true events, or this movie is inspired by actual events. And I mean, if you were going to do that, then I think, you could say, I mean, you could set it with whatever you want, as long as you don't, do you know what I'm saying? Like, you could set it with
You can say it was based on that and set it with an American team.
And set it with an American team and just
claiming it was based on, yeah. Well,
exactly.
I think in defense of, and again, not in defense of like whether that was necessarily right or wrong. It's like, again, you go back and you judge things and we say, well, here's the thing. I think that back then also you did not have a plethora of kind of indie films or films with like casts that didn't have big names like that unit. There was a distribution outlet, and there's a distribution outlet that was not there back then.
Right.
And I think that you needed big names in there. And yes, could you have gone to say, were there some bigger? I don't know. I would have to think of back then who would do it. Did they turn it down? Were they offered it? Were they young enough to be college kids? Did you know enough college famous actors of that descent? I think that might have been it. And you're looking probably at Ethan Hawke coming off some decent roles and Dead Poet Society and things like that. He was a name. The only thing is there's not a whole lot of other big names really in there, is there? It was pretty much. Yeah. That was Ethan Hawke, and I always wondered who they sold it on. So it's not like a huge cast,
right,
but maybe a group of lesser known names. Maybe that film doesn't get made then. So in other words, so like you need to have a big name. You gotta have there's always like gotta have a star because people get drawn to the star. So I wonder if that's the case where studio money was limited and doesn't make it right. It just might explain why it wasn't made with a different cast. That you can blame that as the powers that be who are saying like, we're not going to take a chance on a cast that's not known because we're going to throw this money at this movie and people don't know who's going to come out to see this movie. Right. At least we got Ethan Hawke. He's a big name. People know that name. People love Ethan Hawke. Young people love that. Whatever. It's like, unfortunately, that's the business side of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays you can make that, there's probably no reason not to, because it'll at least find its audience and you get distributed that way.
Yeah. Well, important things to think about. Food for thought.
He asks each traveler 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. And I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right. 3 questions. Question number 1. If you were stranded somewhere and the only way to survive was cannibalism, do you think you could do it? I think my answer is if I'm not going to sit here and be like, yes, absolutely. But I feel like my answer is if I felt like there was still a hope of being rescued, possibly. But if it was that I knew I was not going to get rescued and it was just to prolong my life, no, I wouldn't do that. But if there was no hope at all, then forget it. If there was hope, I don't know. That's my non-answer answer.
I'm going to echo that. I think it does somewhat have to do with your chances of getting out. Like if prolonging life for another 2 weeks means you're going to get home, I think you do a lot that you wouldn't normally do. I think that's just human nature.
Now, I think we asked this before we started recording. For the vegans here in the crowd, do you
plant-based? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you eat more of a plant-based person? I mean, if is there a vegetarian on the plane that you eat them first, or?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to get into the moral quandary of this whole thing.
I'm letting Pat go.
I can't. Hey guys, I can't eat the person burger tonight, but like if you got any like plant substitute, if you have any human made from soy product, I'll jump on that and I'll share. It's
Pat's all about the Soylent Green.
Yes.
Yeah, Soylent. You got Soylent. It's made of people. And are you deferring, Dennis? Are you gonna let me go? Or are you gonna?
I'm letting you go first. I'm letting you go.
I always say that these questions, I think it's really hard to answer any of these questions unless you're in that moment. Do you know what I'm saying? And I always think that it's, and to answer a question with any certainty when you're not in that, I think kind of borders on the arrogant. Do you know what I'm saying? Which
I don't know if it's that, because I think we all understand the fact that it's, you don't know what you would do till you're in those shoes. But having watched this movie, having thought about it, having had John give you that question, you would have had time to ponder of what you think you would want yourself to do. So if you flash into the future and you're in the same situation, what does Patrick want Patrick to do?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
I mean, I really.
And what would be could I ask the reason? That goes for all of you guys, I guess.
Yeah, for me, just the idea of eating another human being really. I mean, I know this is going to sound lame, but it turns the stomach in a way that it just kind of like, it's like my digestive system just like shuts down. Like I couldn't even imagine doing it. I mean, even, and I'm not trying to signal anything because I am like a live and let live kind of guy, but without going into too much detail, some people I ask because I eat vegetarian now, and people say, well, do you ever want to try, or do you ever feel like cheating? And they frame it like that. And honestly, for me, my tastes have changed enough that like certain kinds of meat, like I just have like no taste for it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I've tried, like, yeah, and it just, so the thought of eating a human being, I honestly don't think I could get something down. Again, this is all with the caveat of I'm not in that situation. I'm sitting in a warm, comfortable house with plenty of food and all that kind of stuff. So I would not. And now that whole idea of, like you brought up the interesting question, well, man, if that's going to get you the 2 more weeks to get rescued or / prolong, I mean, that's a really interesting thought. And I completely agree with what you guys are saying. Like, that makes all the sense in the world. But my mind would turn to something like that. Like James Kirk, I don't believe in the no-win scenario. And my question is, okay, well, when you were all relatively healthy because the plane had just crashed and you had provisions, why are we sitting around? Like, I'm not a sit around kind of guy. And Dennis, this from cross country, you go set up the course, and how long do you have before I start calling?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, what you have maybe 45 seconds before I'm like, hey, Dennis, what's the update? I mean, I don't sit around well. I don't wait well. So it's kind of like, okay, why are we sitting around? Let's take 3 people. You're going to head that way. What is your job? You're going to try and find food, or try and find the road, or try and find help, or try and find whatever. And so while we're all sitting here, well, maybe we should hunker down and wait to be rescued. Okay, but how long are we going to do that before law of diminishing returns? We're just spending energy. They made it over the mountain. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just, before it came to that, and you're saying what's depicted in the movie, for me, before it came to that, okay, let's try and go find food. Let's try and just get rescued. And I think we say that you're never sure of what the human body is capable of and what you're capable of. And you're right, until I'm in that situation. But like the stuff that I'm reading, the stuff that I'm trying to process and incorporate into my life is you really have no idea what your limits are until you absolutely push to them. So the whole thing, we're out of energy, we can't make it up and over the mountain. Well, then I'm just going to crawl and drag myself over the mountain until I get help. That's the test right there. How far can I go? And again, someone might turn around and say, well, yeah, how far can you go? Will you take this to survive to maybe help your friends? And I don't know if I could do that. The thought of it, the idea of eating another human, I could not do that. I wouldn't judge. I mean, if you were sitting right next to me in the plane, as long as you didn't try to come after me when I nodded off, I'm not going to sit there and tell you how to get by. But for me, yeah, I judging right now, not sitting there when I'm actually at the point of starvation, and your brain starts to recess, and again, I'm pretty affected by that book I read about it, but the heart of the ocean where they're all sitting in the lifeboat, just hearing what they went through as that started to happen. Yeah, I'd want no part of that. I'd be like, hey, give me my square of chocolate, give me my wine. I'm going over the mountain. I'm just gonna keep walking. I'll come back with the helicopters. But yeah, I don't know if I could do that.
That's probably the same answer for me. That I just the idea of eating another person, that I don't know. Not something I could do unless the situation was as dire as it could possibly be, and that there was a chance for survival and rescue.
Yeah.
And especially because we didn't have any sauces or condiments or anything like that. So
fries to go with that.
Right. I mean, if we're talking straight up Uruguayan sushi here, they didn't even have seaweed. So
they eat it raw too. I think they could use those matches to start a fire and at least cook it.
That's the whole thing. I mean, you're talking about matches to start a fire to get rescued. I mean, you'd at least cook some of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you're eating Antonio jerky, then at the very least you want to maybe cook a little bit of it.
And here's my deepest fear right now is that someone's going to be listening to this that was like a survivor that had to eat someone, and I'm just okay, I just totally judged, and I'm sorry. Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Pat, in that situation, you have literally yucked someone's yum.
Well, you'd be judging me.
Pardon me?
I said you'd be judging me.
Oh, you had to eat someone to survive?
So my answer for this is there's a lot of factors here again. As if John said, if I have internal bleeding, if I'm bleeding out and I know that death is imminent, why would I try to survive another week if I know that I'm dying out here? I'm literally dying.
Or like if the faculty meeting went an hour and 15 minutes long, that's when you start.
There you go. That might be it. But if I have all my physical and mental capabilities, and there's other people depending on me, whether it's there or back at home, kids, children, I think of those factors. I think the drive to survive and that push to find a way, I don't know if I again, like you also preface to Pat, this is all hypothetical. You don't know what you do till you're in it. But what do I think I would do based on my, I think, personality or like the way I kind of like would approach things? Like you said, first of all, the kind of the leadership type of thing of like trying to find a way out. First of all, keeping people, because one of my big pet peeves is when people panic. So panic is, I've never, for whatever reason, I don't know. And and I was a kid who was afraid of everything when I was a little kid because my parents would show me all these movies, and somewhere I came through a process where like everything was like maybe being forced with all those demons. It's like somehow you come on the other end of things and you're always like, there's always a way. And if I do, how am I going to handle this if I'm in these situations? So again, I don't want it to be, I think you use the word arrogant to think like, oh, I would be this guy who would, I just know that I think that I would keep on trying to find a way. And again, if I have children for me waiting back at home, if I have people there who are going to die without an option, I'm going to keep trying to find a way out of this. I'm not going to just throw in the towel and give up. And like you said, you crawl up that mountain, you exhaust all means as much as you can. 2 more weeks, you say prolongs your life, but who knows? It might be 13 days. In the back of my mind, I would be thinking on day 13 is when that rescue party comes. You know, I'm going to make sure that I go as long as I possibly can to survive. Also, am I 100? Am I 90? Am I 80? That might be a factor too. Or am I 20? I think age factors in. Did I live a full life? All right. Well, this is the way I'm going. I'm not. Then you might not cross that line. But I think in my prime mode of survival as a younger man with family and friends and children and everything else, I think I'm going to do whatever I can. The fact is, would I murder anybody for that? No, that's a line you never would cross. So that's off. That's literally off the table. The dead body, though, that's already dead. I believe in the fact that, like, again, that soul is not in that body. What would that person want me to like? To me, it's just like a dead animal. If you cross that line and eat a dead animal, and I know people might take umbrage with that. Oh, it's not a dead animal; it's a dead human person. You know, I get that, but at that point, we're all just meat. In my opinion. And again, I'm not sitting there saying I would be like, let's dive in. It would be literally the last resort. But if I was pushed that far, I could see myself doing that, especially if it meant being able to save other people, not just myself. If I'm the only person there, maybe I don't do that. If I don't have family, maybe I don't do that. I would think I probably wouldn't. But if it's getting back to see my kids, if it's getting back to save other people, to get a search party out there, and that's going to give me the strength to get over that mountain, I'm going to have that in my backpack just in case I come that close and fatigue is setting in, and it means me getting to that town to get the rescue party to save those people. I think my personality would be, I could see myself doing it. Wouldn't enjoy it. Would feel bad about that probably the rest of my life to a certain degree. Would be something that would take a toll, you know, but at the same time, was it the greater good to do? And again, I'm not killing anybody. They were already dead. There was a resource there that it's like is it really much different? I don't know. I guess maybe it's a bad analysis, but I'm thinking like an organ donor. Somebody gets another organ donor and they're using that person's liver or that kidney or that heart, and that allows them to be a grandfather or a father for another 20, 30 years of their kids. They're taking another human part. They're not eating it, but they're using it. They're consuming it basically in a way. I don't know. So it's definitely a deeper thought process that I think that if push came to shove, I would. I have my like layer of also as the vegan part of it. I go through and I think I've talked to Pat, like what's first on the list? Obviously, if there's no plants or animals, you're in that type of environment. And then I'm looking for fish would be the first to go. And then from fish, it goes to smaller rodents. And I kind of work my way up. And it doesn't mean that the value of those is necessarily greater. It's just that's how I would probably process it. And obviously, human flesh would be at the very, very far end of that. Barely on. It's not even on the menu. But at the point of survival, I might ask, hey, do you have any of that back there in the kitchen?
Can I please have the flight of human appendages? I like to try the spleen and the liver.
It would be interesting if me and Pat were on that plane and we survived, because Pat's saying he would take the leadership role because he always calls me up 45 seconds and I'm there. And John, I think you would be kind of saying, and you know what? Yeah, then you got too many, you know what they say, too many cooks spoil it.
Well, and it's not so much a leadership role, but it's just a, hey man, where you at? It's like just the community. What are we doing? Like I don't sit still well. But you know, if you need like, hey, we're an hour into it, we need to send someone over the mountain. I'm good. Like send me. I'm good.
So if people were just like panicky or lazy or not doing that, they would just be eating you up.
If people were, well, again, I'm not going to judge, but I'd be like, hey guys, I'm heading over the mountain.
And had it been a bigger, more commercial type plane, you probably would have had at least some like finger sandwiches or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh.
Anyway, question number 2. The players kept mentioning pizza. What are your favorite non-traditional toppings on a pizza? And just in case anybody wanted to get hungry, I did drop a link in our little chat there for this website that had some ridiculously good-looking non-traditional pizzas. But what is your favorite? Like it's not the typical sausage, pepperoni, even like green peppers, onions, that kind of stuff. Is there anything that would be your go-to, or something you haven't tried yet that you'd like to try? What's a combination that, if you were going to go with a unique sounding pizza set of toppings, what would you go with?
Liver, sausage, and kidney beans.
There you go.
Broccoli and bacon.
Pair that with a nice Chianti too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Broccoli on the pizza. That actually sounds really good.
I've had broccoli on a pizza, I think, yeah.
Really?
So
Cauliflower's been on there, broccoli.
Broccoli and bacon is really good.
Nice.
You said non-traditional. I mean,
There was a place in Champaign when I was down in Champaign for college. There was this pizza place called Antonio's that would do pizza by the slice, and it was really cheap. It was like $1.25 for a slice, and they had a broccoli and mac and cheese pizza. It was really good.
I'm liking this spinach and artichoke dip pizza on that website.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Butternut squash. That'd be interesting too. That one.
Butternut
chicken shawarma pita pizza.
So my favorite.
I'm done. Number 14, French onion mushroom pizza.
Oh, there you go.
I'm out.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, that would be good.
Bo slapped down
Let's
his
go order
$10
that right now.
Bo slapped down his $10 and he's out. No longer the master of his pizza domain.
Oh, is there one with zucchini there? Let's see. Yeah, zucchini.
Oh, there might have been, yeah.
That white zucchini corn pizza looks actually pretty decent. I would love some.
I will say, Bo, that when we went to go see the Greatest Generation show, that hot honey pizza was pretty good.
It was.
That was pretty good. I think my go-to that is a fairly non-traditional toppings would be Silo Pizza here pretty nearby.
Yeah.
And they have their I know I probably mentioned this one before when we've talked about pizza. They have their seafood pizza.
Yes, they do.
And that is the snow crab, pollock, shrimp, and white clam sauce. It is very, very tasty.
It's something else, that's for sure.
The one with strawberry.
It's almost rich.
Yes.
Like with that clam sauce and everything, you're like, wow, that's a dense, rich pizza.
I usually just get, normally I could eat more than that, but I usually just get either a small and eat half of it, or I get the personal pan and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones that look really good on this list that I sent you guys there was one that was a brown butter lobster and spinach pizza.
There you go.
That one looked pretty tasty. The zucchini and corn pizza, that one looked pretty good.
And that strawberry one too would be kind of an interesting. I think of I like the pleasantly surprised by the Hawaiian one with the pineapple with something sweet on it. So it'd be interesting to see with a strawberry on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. I agree with you. That would be the most non-traditional. I typically don't mix the sweet fruits with, even in salads and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to grow that taste of having strawberries or
a good strawberry mandarin orange salad.
Although you don't do well with sweets.
Yeah, see, I don't do well with sweets. That's my problem. I like to have them for dessert. But you're right. The Hawaiian, the pineapple. The couple times I've had that, it adds a lot. It's well done, well executed. So I'd be curious to see what like strawberry on the pizza would be like. And
yeah, see, I can't get into the pineapple.
Okay.
I remember your favorite one was that barbecue chicken at Hits, I think, wasn't it? Wasn't that a go-to for you?
Yeah, I would do that one sometimes.
Yeah.
I think my go-to now, like whenever I order,
pizza.
That's a good one. Whenever I order a pizza now, it is, what do? I do chicken, bacon, olives, and feta cheese. That's my combination.
Huh.
Interesting.
It's good stuff.
Sounds good.
I do like a good seafood pizza though. I'm looking at some of these on here. The last one on the list is killing me here. Rotisserie chicken naan pizza with spinach, queso fresco, and fire roasted tomato mango chutney sauce.
Oh my goodness!
Sure.
And
wow.
So this has been the 30-something movie podcast. We'll pick up the next of the 3 questions next time. John's going to grab his car keys, go find the ingredients for this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Onion jam is a very good pizza base on a flatbread pizza.
Oh, okay.
I knew a guy, he has since left, he's now in New York, but he had a little wood-fired pizza business for a while, and he would make a breakfast pizza with an egg in the middle, onion jam as the base, cheese. He'd put some some mixed greens on it after it came out of the oven. Oh my God.
Bo, I was worried you were going to say, I knew this guy, but I ate him, and he's not here anymore. All right.
No, I've eaten a lot of things in my day, but
Okay.
people have never been on the menu.
No. Okay. All right. And then finally, question number 3, where would be the worst place for you to be stranded? Mine is easy. Space.
Oh, yeah.
I have that.
Because no one can hear you scream?
No, I have that irrational, intense fear, all based on watching Space Camp as a small child, of just being stranded and floating in space.
Well, what's the one with Sandra Bullock?
Oh yeah,
Yes. Gravity?
Gravity. Yes, like that. Yeah.
Yep. Wouldn't go see that one in the theater.
You didn't?
Nope.
You didn't see it?
Nope.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Okay. That was a good movie. That captured that feeling of isolation or desolation, and just it was.
Yeah, we watched the first episode of the new season of the For All Mankind, and there was a scene where a guy was kind of free floating through space, and I'm like, nope, not even.
Me.
John's out.
Does not even bother me because I wouldn't be getting in this situation to begin with.
I saw that there, and I liked. I mean, that's okay. Yeah, there's so many choices with this one, but space is really a good one. If I thought about it now, I was saying, I thought one that impacted me was open water.
Okay.
And it was thinking of where the 2 scuba divers, based on a true story. They miscounted when they came up. Boat takes off. You wait. You come up, and the boat's gone, and you're in the middle of the ocean.
Yes.
And it's cold, and there's shark-infested waters. I think the space one would be pretty bad, but I almost think because of the threat of potential sharks underneath the dark water, that would just be that would be tough. Yeah. That would be a tough one, because you're never, at least in space, you can kind of meditate a bit. Beautiful. There's a beauty to that to a certain degree. Not that the ocean's not beautiful, but the dark depths of the ocean and being way out there with sharks, possibly like you're waiting for a bite at your foot, that anticipation of dread, where the other one's just a bad situation, this one would be like constant torment. I could never relax.
Oh, I think if I knew a shark was coming, and if I had no chance for survival and I knew a shark was coming and swimming around me, I probably would just go head first into the water and just
drown yourself.
No, just like ramming speed right into the shark's mouth. Perhaps today is a good day to die.
Get her.
Yeah, get her.
That's middle of the ocean, open water, nowhere to go.
Okay.
That would be it, with very cold temperatures too.
Okay.
Some of it, John pointed out, just some of these things tied to our irrational fears. I think if I was stuck on the top of something very high that I could not get off of, because just that irrational fear of height would be terrible. I can't really come up with an exact scenario.
Oh, you gotta watch the one. Did you see the one with? It was actually fairly decent. There's one where the 2 girls go up to do a kind of dare.
Yes. I've heard about this, but no, I never did see it.
They climb one of the tallest towers in the area, and they want to get those type of people do that, and they get the big shot at for their podcast or whatever, for their photos.
Yeah.
So there's these 2 girls, and one convinces the other one to go up there. So they go up there, and then the ladder breaks, and they're stuck at the top, and no one knows they're out there really. And like that if you've seen it or haven't seen it.
I have not seen it, but I heard about it, and I was like, oh God, no.
Yeah, pleasantly a good movie. Like when I say, it gives you definitely that feeling, and you'll, if that's your fear, you just dive right into that fear.
I can't watch a movie where someone is near the edge of a really tall building without getting or having a visceral reaction. Just the thought of, oh God.
Let's see. You mentioned 2 girls climbing a really tall tower to get photos for something or whatever, and I wanted to just point out, just because Jared Leto has long hair doesn't mean he's a girl.
Hey now.
I mean, I still don't. Is he on top of that tower, or did he come down?
These are questions I cannot answer.
Okay. Would you hear about that though? That he climbed up on top? Was it the Empire State Building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know. Do you know why? Did they explain why?
It had something to do with launching his band's
Publicity
world
stunt.
tour.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was like a publicity stunt for the tour.
Yeah.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Well, what's his name climbed the Burj Khalifa?
Who did?
Cruise.
Oh, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And isn't there a
Tom
shot of Will
Cruise.
Smith up there too? Talk about something that gave me the heebie-jeebies. God,
Possibly. Yeah.
that
There'd be
is
no way I'd do
way
that.
too high for a person to be outside. No.
Nope. That'll come back when I think next week we're doing What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and I think one of our questions will be, what is the highest structure you'd be willing to climb? Not
Does
the Burj
a 6
Khalifa.
foot ladder count?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Definitely not the Burj Khalifa. If you had like this is Spinal Tap sized model of the Burj Khalifa, I'd climb that.
I'm in. Yeah, I'd climb 6-inch Stonehenge. Yeah.
Yeah. Like making a big deal out of it would be something.
Yes.
Yeah. My other follow-up answer to this, my like second backup answer is a little bit more flippant. I said space, and that's the right answer. My other flippant answer of where I would hate to be stranded would be like the middle of the stadium of like Alabama or Texas A&M or somewhere like that. That's not where I'd want to be.
Kansas.
Yeah.
With the stadium full and you can't leave and they're just talking at you.
Just surrounded. Just surrounded. Yeah, that would be awful. I'd probably rather go drifting off in space.
Oh boy.
I do want to point out there was one team whose name I did not mention. So that was a favor to our buddies. I'm trying to be a peacemaker here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh
Anyway, Pat, where would you hate to be stranded?
Oh, so many places, John. So many places.
GVC.
Yeah.
GVC.
Yeah. Yeah.
A faculty meeting at 2:40.
Yeah. Inside.
Yeah.
Away from, you guys all gave like some really good serious answers. This is going to sound ridiculous. I abhor being by the water and not able to get in. Like,
see, that was going to be my guess. My guess for you was going to be something like a desert or somewhere where you're just completely away from any kind of water.
Yeah, I think like that, and I mean, even like, I don't know, the next time I'm end up stranded in the desert or whatever, but I mean, if we're like by a beach and it's like you're at some sort of a social function where swimming's not allowed.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, really? That just stinks. I mean, and I know that it was such a cool thing, when they used to do the boat at where we worked at Hawthorne, they used to do the party boat. It was okay once the sun went down, but if it was nice weather and the sun was up, I'd be looking out at the water and just be like, oh man, I can't get in. Mm-hmm. What happens if I just jump in, hang out here, and then when the boat passes by, I hop back in? Can we have it? So that one kind of gets me. I don't know how I do in the desert, like if there's absolutely no water source, but yeah, that probably would be a struggle. Because come to think of it, I do, if there's not like even so much as like a pond or anything nearby, like sometimes you get inland and it just there's no body of water. I get the heebie-jeebies. I get a little bit landlocked.
Get a little verklempt.
Yeah, I do. I mean, even if there's like a pool accessible, that works for me. Just some kind of liquid in a contained state that I can put myself into.
Yeah, a back to tank.
A back to tank would be great.
There you go.
A back to tank would be great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another spot that I'd be, because would you guys, you got space. No one can hear you scream. Dennis was talking about the open ocean where the sharks are coming to get you. I mean, that's always, that's one that I think that would be, especially as we tell ourselves that we're the top of the food chain, and then you end up wandering into an area where nature, it's not that they're evil, terrible, vicious creatures, but it's just like, hey, that's just where they feed. I think that would definitely be a challenge.
Until you realize the food chain doesn't matter when you're floating in space and it's come completely untethered and you're just going to float in blackness until you run out of oxygen.
Right. Yes.
That's my idea of a good time.
I think another one might be like Caves. Caves give me a
yeah.
You're stuck in a cave. Did you ever see the movie As Above, So Below?
Yes.
I think it was was that the Catacombs
that was
or
the,
Caves or
that was
whatever?
the Catacombs under Paris. Yeah.
That was that feeling is that would be
so that would actually be my other one. So and they're complete opposites. Is the just black infinite emptiness of space would be one of them. The other one is really small confined spaces, and I say that because there was a cave that you could kind of crawl through and walk through, and I remember this when I was a kid going into these caves because you could take like tours down in these caves, and my dad loved to go do this. It was one of my least favorite things to do because and I was a kid, so I don't know how the adults did this. There were some pretty narrow spots. And anytime I see one of those movies where somebody goes into a cave or somebody goes, even that scene in Aliens where Bishop gets in that tunnel and starts crawling through that pipe like that, no thank you. Like any kind of a situation where I'm going to get almost completely confined like that, almost like to the point where you can't move your arms and you can't really do much of anything. And so the infinite emptiness of space and the little teeny tiny, like I'm going to get wedged into something and no, thank you.
Yeah, if you're like claustrophobic elevators, some people say, but I always feel like there's a way you can maybe get out of an elevator.
Yeah.
Climbing up the top, going up, dangerous, but like I don't feel like it's completely confining.
Speaking of, and it's a slight tangent, Dennis, you might be happy to know, I did terrify some of my family right before Halloween by showing them the movie Devil.
Good.
Oh God. Oh, bloody heck.
Yeah.
Has everybody seen that, Bo?
No, I read the synopsis of that, and I had to stay awake for a week.
Right, Pat. You read it and you wouldn't touch it, you said, right?
I couldn't sleep for a week. I had to stay awake for a week with the lights on, and I'm sleep deprived anyway. I was so panicked after just reading the synopsis on Wikipedia. No way I wouldn't.
Obviously, I'm not Shyamalan, Sixth Sense, best film, but I'm like, The Devil is a really one of those little gems of his that I feel like I love. Like I love that.
Yeah.
Like I think it moves well. The pacing, it's a grand, amazing story but it's good. It's smart. And I think the way they tie things in with the ending, with the story, with the security guard guy, it's like, the whole, like, I don't want to give the rest away because it's worth watching, Pat. Someday when you get,
I read the synopsis. I know what happens. I think it's fascinating.
Know what happens at the end and everything. Okay, all right.
It sounded great. All I know is my takeaway is this: you tell me you could eat the person. I'll tell you, man, if the lights go down in the elevator, everyone's going down first.
See,
that's it.
You did say that. I remember when you watched that.
That's
exactly what's happening. So
that's it.
Eating people off of you. But if you're in an elevator and stuck with Pat, doesn't matter if you're innocent. You're going down.
I feel like the Pat in an elevator where the lights have gone out turns into the problem is I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in my mind, I'd like to be like Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
it kind of feels personal.
If anybody would like to get off, now's the time.
Yeah, like you're meaning after one person. Okay, the lights go off. You're not just killing people. It's when the lights go back on and someone's dead, and now the lights go off again. That's when Pat's just taking everyone else out. Right.
Yeah, but I've already seen the movie, so once the lights go down, I'm not waiting. I'm not going to wait around. I told you. I told you. Right? Like, Dennis, if it's 45 seconds, I haven't heard.
There should be the status of the course. I'd love to see the interrogation footage of Pat somewhere after this all happens, and they're like, hey, "What made you go crazy and kill a bunch of people?" And it was, well, dude, there's a synopsis. I read the synopsis, and I'm telling you, if that light goes on, I don't care if they're innocent. I gotta take them out. Like I gotta take them out. What am I gonna do?
Officer, I read the Wikipedia page, and then the lights went out.
Here, watch it. Look it up. Pull up anything. Tell me you wouldn't do that, officer. What do you do?
All right. All I'm saying is
hands were in the pocket, and then the hands came out of the pocket. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm just saying it was a hot day and they upped the charges on the soda in the cafeteria and then the lights went out. You're telling me I'm the bad guy? I'm the bad guy? Really? Okay, forget it. That's where I'm at.
All right. Well, we've reached the point where we know that Pat is the race car in the red.
Yeah, that's it.
Superfly TNT, Guns of the Navarone.
Guns of the Navarone. Yeah.
There's two elevators at the new apartment that I'm at here, and if you ever come to visit, Pat, make sure you go in one, I go in the other.
I'll take the
Yeah, I was
stairs.
gonna say, no more elevator rides with Pat.
Anytime I'm with Pat, it's gonna be like from now on, we go to an elevator, it's like, I'll wait for the next one.
I'll take the next one. Yeah,
I'll take the stairs.
Hey, when we went to New York, we stayed in, like, everything is big in New York, and I think we were on like the 104th floor. I climbed the stairs every single day. I told the family, I'll see you in 15 minutes. I'm not getting in that elevator. And I just climbed the stairs. I had to get to the top and take a nap, but I'm just like, forget about it. I'm not getting in that elevator.
Given the choice between 104 floors worth of stairs and an elevator that might have like something possessed in it, I'm taking the elevator.
Yeah,
Me too.
I don't know. And then I saw that thing with the practical joke where they dim the lights and then they have that kid sneak into the elevator and start screaming. Oh my God. Bless us all.
I mean, if you do that, where it's like some kind of a prank where somebody pops out of a panel and scares you, that person's getting knocked out. Yeah, that's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be my knee-jerk reaction.
It's. I'm quoting Pulp Fiction again. It's this kind of stuff that's going to bring the situation to a head.
Yes.
It's just that was my takeaway. Yeah, maybe I got to watch that now that I know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll be ready.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
I don't know.
You'll be fine.
I have to pick a time I don't need to sleep for a couple of days. But I mean, like,
Pat, you've watched so many other horror movies for this podcast over the years. I think you'll be fine at this point.
Yeah,
possibly.
I think in a weird way, you feel good at the end. I think. I don't know.
I will say that, like, and again, I know I cheated, and I'm sorry, everybody. I could. But in reading the synopsis, and I'm not sure who's seen it and who hasn't on the pod, so I'm not going to spoil anything. But you're right, and I am a pretty big fan of M. Night Shyamalan stuff, and it is really a compelling story. I mean, it is very cool. So maybe I'll build up the. Yeah. But again, I might be the bad guy. So if those lights go down, everybody just duck.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our Alive episode. If you want to find more of our episodes, 30podcast.com is our website. We are on most of the social medias at 30podcast or some variation therein. We've got our next few episodes coming up. So December, like I said, is our Good Eatin' month. We had our 500th epiversary. This time was Alive. Next time is What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Tombstone will be after that. Then Son-in-Law with Jason Colvin as our special guest from the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. Nightmare Before Christmas. And then sometime in there, somewhere, is Enter the Dragon from 1973. It went on sale. So I keep like debating whether or not I'm going to run over to Best Buy and pick it up. The 4K version of Enter the Dragon is on sale for like $10 at Best Buy. So there's a little teeny tiny part of me that's like, maybe that one and the 4K of Pulp Fiction is $7.99 I think right now. So there were a couple of possibilities.
You already own it, right?
Pulp Fiction?
No, the Dragon. Enter the Dragon.
No, I don't own Enter the Dragon.
Pat.
I'm sure Pat does. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was saying, you're saying, hey, it's $10. I might go in there and get it now. Pat, if he saw it on sale for $10, I think he would go in there. He'd be like, no, you're taking 20 for this.
Yeah.
I'm not paying this for 10, 20.
Yeah.
Maybe 30. Here's $30 for this.
Here's 30.
You don't charge $10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why if I get the 4K, if I were to go get the 4K version, it does come with a digital code. So if you need a digital version of it, and I'll let you know.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, so we're gonna have that. That is the month of December. Our Patreon shorts are. It started in '93 with Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. It ended in '93, The Wonder Years, and then our main Patreon for December is Heart and Souls from 1993, and then that's December. So after that, in just a few weeks, we're going to be starting up with the brand new year. We'll be in 1994. And our first month, January of 1994, I don't have the Patreon shorts picked out for that yet, but our Patreon for Law and Order month in January, our Patreon will be 7 Samurai.
Oh my goodness.
And then the Law and Order movies for the rest of January will be Naked Gun 33 1/3, Beverly Hills Cop 3,
oh jeez,
The Getaway, The Chase, and Wyatt Earp.
Oh.
So it'll be a fun start to the year.
Yeah, well,
a lot of threes in there.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I want to say there were several 3 movies that were going to be this year. I'm trying to think of what the other one might have been. But yeah, several 3s were in this year, and that was almost a month in and of itself, was movies that had 3s, like the third or the second sequel of something else. But yeah. The other thing about next year is I did have a whole slate of movies that would be coming out, movies we'd be doing for Patreon, like if they were movies that came out in 2024 or something like that. I may have to re-examine some of those because with the writers and actors strike that has pushed back a lot of the different release dates for these. I feel like I heard just the other day that Deadpool 3, which I had planned for us to do, or for me to do as a Patreon short in May, I think I heard that it's possibly getting pushed back to 2025. And there's a few others. Like there was supposed to be an Alien movie coming out in the summer of 2024, and that might have gotten pushed back. So, however those end up, there was the new Captain America movie was supposed to be September of 2024. I don't know if that's still the case. Beetlejuice 2 was supposed to be September of 2024. So we'll just have to see if with new release schedules, things like that, we'll just have to see where things fall. But when some of those come out, we will cover some of them as best we can. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, gents, as always, I know sometimes we leave the podcast and we comment on how we've talked about food and we're hungry, but I don't know. This one, I'm a little torn on whether I should walk away from this podcast feeling hungry.
So, a bit of an appetite suppressant topic this evening.
Just a bit, just a tad. So yeah. Maybe I'll just go fix another drink or something.
There you go.
We could go get some chocolate. Because nobody's eating. That was the dumbest thing when they start celebrating and eating their entire supply of chocolate.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was what I was gonna. Yes, yeah. But I was gonna bring that up too when we were talking about some of the silly parts.
Yeah.
It was like again that I think Pat and I would have lost it. Like I would have lost it too. Like the guy did lose it to his credit when he wakes up and he's like, who ate it? Who ended the? And they were like, oh well, we're getting rescued in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been. I think Pat might have changed at least the maybe the killing of people at that point. That might
right.
Might not have ate him, but you would have killed him.
Right.
There's a moral line.
Right. I actually have an audio clip of that section. I think it's right here.
My chocolate, my beautiful chocolate.
Yeah, it was that part right there. Yeah. No.
Oh man.
All right. All right. Well, that's going to do it. So everybody, thank you so much, gents, for being here as always.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, John.
This is awesome, and thank you so much for putting it all together. And Bo, please extend to your brother thanks, because he's able to help us get our hands on a lot of these movies to watch, and boy, that just really is much appreciated. So,
will do.
Yeah, I see what you did there. Will do.
Yeah, there. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, a lot to digest here, so we're gonna head on out now. Thank you so much, everybody. Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. Try not to eat your friends, and we'll see you back here next time.